lot of people be trying to figure me out. Ivan. Where the hell he come from? Who he be? Typical. You ain't know? Huh? About to find out. Yo, introducing me. Ain't nothing new to me. Ain't a chance to ruin me. There won't be no mutiny. Nothing you can do to me long as I keep righteous. Waste of time and effort, you can't fight this. Let alone stop the momentum once a mode immense avalanche. Trample across your habitat. Aftermath has met. Fortune, fame, you can have that. Not impressed at all. Bubble head inflated with pride. Eventually will fall. Gall and the nerve of you nerves. Any thought of my demise is absurd. Filthy turds spread the word. It's the guy that you never heard. I give it pure sure. Never taken by law. One flesh with me, I'm more. Out the door since I stepped off the porch. I've been different. And faced a lot of hate cause I was gifted. Curses got lifted, now the focal point vivid. If we straight, then we straight. If not, get found twisted. It's my formal introduction and the topic of discussion. I do the bluffing on percussion. A formal introduction. Don't confuse me with the rest of them. Anyone you bring, I get the best of them. A formal introduction and the topic of discussion. I do the bluffing on percussion. A formal introduction. Don't confuse me with the rest of them. Anyone you bring, I get the best of them. This is who I be, Ivan. I always been searching, on a quest for knowledge and wisdom and understanding. Lied so much, hated myself because of lies. Can't base it off a handshake, overlook in the eyes. Not a trace, been tainted, perversion of principle. Hypocrites say that you can't, but do identical. Crooked ways, non-symmetrical. There's no balance, life or death, control of your tongue or living hazard. All the gems that I gathered through my pilgrimage of earth, utilize to make it work. Take advantage of my birth. Know I'm here for a purpose, a duty, divine service. When it's time to talk about it, I ain't a bit nervous. I got a lot of dudes that's urgent, not common but divergent. Judgment is almost close, guilty is the verdict. Dish out is what comes back, a known saying. Then how this place ain't gonna face no waste, I'm just saying. Introduction and the topic of discussion. I do the bluffing on percussion. A formal introduction. Don't confuse me with the rest of them. Anyone you bring, I get the best of them. A formal introduction and the topic of discussion. I do be bluffing on drum percussion. A formal introduction. Don't confuse me with the rest of them. Anyone you bring, I get the best of them. This is what I do. And the reason why I'm still around. Gotta dumb it down for clowns, not a familiar sound. What I speak fantasy, fairy tale, make believe. Eyes are wide open, evidence is there, clear to see. Some can't envision cause they vision politicians with parties that encourage sin and worse than the beginning. Then judgment day came in the form of heavy rain. Second judgment, the exact alike, only difference is flame. Pun intended, the flamers, metaverse life gamers. Anyone that bend over backwards to be famous. Riches to entertainers, keep you drunken in the narrative. Not knowing that we only got one life to live. Once you're gone, that's a different realm. Everything is severed off, no returning back at all. Everything you gained is lost. Then what's the sense of living for if you can't take it with you? The rewards that I'm living for is way more official. Salute. So we're going to continue on with the topic from last week. What are they hiding from us? And now we're going to get into the Zeppelins and the airships. What have they been hiding from us? And I got a couple of video presentations as always. They'll be in the description, so you'll be able to refer to them and check them out further. more extensive. What are they hiding from us? Continuing on with the Zeppelins, the airships. This is something that's definitely been hidden. You seen what's, I would say, replicated of those earlier Zeppelins and airships with Scarface, The World Is Yours, and the blimp, the Goodyear blimps, fly over football fields during football games and such. But they were much more in the past. We're going to get into that. Again, this is not exclusive from me. I'm not the person that is exclusively bringing this out. This is information that's been presented before. I'm presenting it. As always, if you believe, praise God. If you don't, praise God. Either way, you have your liberty. This is for those that may have not been informed of this or may have heard of it and didn't go far to do more research. So I'll be presenting, if you could say, on an introductory level. And hopefully it opens up the interest and sparks the interest to go and look and dig for more on this topic. So let's begin. Shout out to everybody that's tapped in, everybody that's tuned in. Peace, grace, and peace. Appreciate you. As always, you could be anywhere else, but you came here rocking out with me. The presentation of the topic. So here we have a picture of one of these Zeppelins, the airship. And if you recall, in previous presentations, I mentioned about how the skies are always whited out, how there's always what's called the vanilla sky. And the sky is whited out. And you would think, why are all these pictures whited out? The skies are whited out. What are they trying to hide from us? What are they trying to hide us from seeing? What don't they want us to see? And the fact is, there was plenty of activity in the sky in the past with these airships. I'm going to show you that as we go through the rest of the presentation, and then the video clips that I have will go a little further in detail. I have some of the same photos, and I have some different ones, some exclusive ones. But why did this mode of transportation, why did this method of transportation cease? Some people that see these may think that it's just a little cabin area where people were at. You're going to find out, we go through this presentation, that is false. They basically had a hotel in the sky. A hotel, bars, lounges, restaurants, shopping, you name it, in the sky on these Zeppelins. Let's get the next one. This is not Photoshop. This is not edited or made up. You can look this up yourself, and you will find these same images and probably more. So you see what that is. That's the Eiffel Tower, and you see there's a Zeppelin here. You see all the people on the bridge at the Eiffel Tower looking up at it. This was regular. This was regularly seen. All these different airships. All these different airships in the skies. Here's another one. So one would ask, why do they fly so close to these different buildings with the spires and stuff? That's where they would get energy. Sort of like plugging in. And they used them, when you research, you'll find that they used them in World War I to drop bombs on their enemies. I guess a form of stealth, because you can't hear them like you would hear an airplane. Let's get the next one. As you can see, that's DC, that's the Washington Monument. And you have Zeppelins flying. More than one. So this is why the vast majority of pictures in this time, you'll see the vanilla sky where the sky is completely whited out. Completely. Because they're hiding what was in the skies. This was not just in the United States. This was in various countries across the planet. This activity was taking place. So here we have another one. Seems like somewhere in the Middle East. And photographer caught a picture from behind. 3 gentlemen sitting on the rocks on a mountain or on a high hill, looking across and seeing a Zeppelin fly. And there's reports of them, they flew internationally, not just within their respective countries, but international travel as well. Again, they had hotels in them. I'm going to show that in a minute. And in the videos that I have to present as well, they had hotels in them, lounges, restaurants, the whole 9 yards. It wasn't just in that area that you see on the bottom of, a so-called blimp. It's actually inside. Again, I'm going to show you that as we go through the rest of these slides. Why did it stop? Why isn't this a mode of transportation anymore? Research and see what excuses are given. There's a famous one that went down in history, the Hindenburg.
and the event that happened with that. And since then, that's that. There's not been a real surgence of this mode of transportation, of air transportation. Why? Whenever things like this are done, you need to look and follow the money, as they say. Just as with electricity on the ground, why are certain countries and companies opposed to all electric vehicles? Because it takes away from the industry of oil and fuel. Let's continue. So just like you see electric scooters now and electric cars now, that's not new. It's not new technology. That's been here before. There's another one. Flying over the Sophia. Why did this stop? Outside of the famous event that transpired with the Hindenburg, are there any other reports or documentations of any accidents or any crashes or anything with these Zeppelins and this mode of transportation, air transportation? That's something you can research for yourself and look at and check out and investigate. But that is the infamous one that everyone knows about. But were there any others prior to that? I haven't come across any. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I haven't come across any. So you got to ask yourself, why did it stop? Why did they stop it? Because they couldn't capitalize off of it? They couldn't break the bank off of it? And that's what they would do. You see how they just pull up to these spies and they yeah, of course, that has a lot to do with it. As mentioned, with fuel and oil and things of that nature. And that's all it would do. Come and dock and get charged. And then remove and keep it pushing. There's another one. Old world buildings and those antennas on top of these spires and stuff, they drew energy, natural energy, natural electricity. A lot more advanced in technology than definitely than today. Why did it stop? It's a gang of these things. It's not just one. And it's not just one country. Not just in the United States, in Europe, Asia, all across the planet. Again, you look at a lot of these old pictures with the vanilla skies, the whited out skies, and now you know why. Here's one with a little color to it. Of the one that was just previously shown. Let's get the next one. All over the earth. All over the earth. This was a mode of transportation. Why did it stop? Why do they hide it? Why so many pictures with whited out skies? So many pictures with whited out skies, particularly when digging for or researching these old world buildings. You'll find a lot of the pictures of these old world buildings with the skies whited out. And this is one of the main reasons why. Hiding what was in the skies. See all the people on the ground level in the plaza area here, and there goes the Zeppelin. There is a history that is fed to us, that's told to us in regards to how they originated and who invented them and who created the patent. Allegedly, again, that's what we're fed. That's what we're told. That's up to you whether you want to believe it or not, if you choose to believe that or not, the story that is told. So this is on the New York Times. Can you imagine today just seeing a whole bunch of these in the sky, just moving about, just floating in the sky, quiet, it's floating. Again, this was everywhere. Get the next one. So you can see Zeppelin flying, and then you could take a look at the vehicle, look at the car, look at the people, look at how they dress. Over 100 years ago. Let's get the next one. Don't worry, I'm getting to the part with the interior. We coming to it. Here's another one. When they need to recharge or whatever, that's where they go to. They go to the top of those spires and they connect. That's where that one's heading to. All natural. All natural. Free energy. Free energy. It's the way the Creator designed this planet. Just a sidebar, just like with water, water is free. Only a diabolical person will bottle it and sell you what is free. Different plants and herbs and fruits, vegetation that's naturally grown, and you're charged for it. It's diabolical. Devious. Evil. Wicked. Anyway, let's get the next one. It's all over the earth. Everywhere. All right. So here's one. And it's showing you the capabilities of the inside. You see that symbol on the fins or the tail, because it's accredited to the Germans for the quote unquote inventing of this. But that is something this is technology that's been here. Here's another one. So if you look clearly, you'll see at the bottom left, the control area that's normally like on the bottom of the quote unquote blimp, the Zeppelin, and then look at the middle, what's inside. You see cabins, a smoking room, those are cabins to sleep in. This is a hotel. All the way to the right, you see the crew's quarters. What's going on inside that thing? That's what was in the sky. It could hold a lot of people. The capacity was pretty big. Here's another one. So again, to the front, bottom right, you see the control car. That's what's normally seen underneath the quote unquote blimp. Then you look and you see cabins for sleeping. This is a hotel. Kitchen, dining room. So this is a famous one. You can look this one up as well. The Graf Zeppelin, and I think this is written in some type of Latin, but it says you see restaurant, cabins, passenger cabins, kitchen. That's inside the Zeppelin. Here's another illustration of what it was like. See the different rooms, different cabins to sleep in. See people over here to the right, in the lounge, to the left, downstairs. So here's people going to the Zeppelin to board it. All those people are not in that little space underneath that little cabin or whatever you want to call it underneath the actual Zeppelin. They're going inside of it. They would be right inside of that flying with a place to sleep, to eat. to lounge. There's another one. Illustration of the Graf Zeppelin. All right. That's the last one. And we're going to get to these clips. I got a couple of joints to share with you guys, and then we're going to call it a wrap. So in this one, it shows you that there's 20 cabins. Cabins 1 to 4, cabins 6 to 9, 10 to 13, 14 to 20. Smoking room, lounge, dining room, another lounge, and the lavatories, bathrooms. So these things could accommodate a lot of people. Let's get to some of these videos. As always, I'll leave the link in the description for you guys to check it out yourself. And if it sparks your interest to dig deeper, do so. Or if you know any other information, those that's watching, feel free to tap in and add on to it. So now we're going to get to these videos. All right. Here's the first one. So these are different forms of airships, balloons. Before the shapes of the Zeppelin. Look at how majestic these joints are. It's different. This is how a lot of people traveled. They used these balloons. What eventually became the Zeppelins. That's one of the pictures I shared as well. That was one of the pictures I shared as well. Well, that's what some people call it. They call it Tartarian technology, or the old world of Tartaria. But it's something more than that. Way more.
Why did Amazon send me $20,000? Because I use Amazon AI. I'm going to show you.
There's another image I shared. And who knows how much more evidence pictures that exist of this. Proof that technology has been around for a very long time. Another photo I presented. This video is not as long as the other one. I'm gonna let this one rock out, and I'm gonna play a portion of the next one. See, it's flat. It's flat.
hey, if you want to keep working 50, 60 hours, the enemy's plan.
Sorry about that. Can't control the ads. Can you imagine seeing a bunch of those flying over the cities?
It's starting to rain again. The rain had slacked up a little bit. The back motors of the ship are just holding it just enough to keep it from... It bursts into flames. Get it started. Get it started. It's fire and it's rising. It's rising terrible. Oh, my. Get out of the way, please. It's burning, bursting into flames, and it's falling on the mooring mast and all the folks between it. This is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's like 20... Oh, 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is rising to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it. I can't even talk to people whose friends are out there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it's just laying there, massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe, talking, screaming. Lady, I'm sorry. Honestly, I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside while
What do you think? What do you think happened? After that, it pretty much disappeared. Yeah, I would agree. This is the age of radio as well. Orson Welles was able to then pull off one of the biggest pranks in history with what he did on radio. Well, let's get the next clip. Let's get the next one. Let me get it ready for y'all. This one is last one was excellent. And this one is really nice. Let's get to it. And again, the links to these clips will be in the description.
Howdy y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to attempt to desensitize new viewers to a concept which, until recently, has been viewed more as a pseudoscience than something practical or applicable. Hot air balloons, as I've discussed in previous videos, had become a novelty and a topic of study for the most adventurous scientists as of the 18th century. We have multiple detailed reports out of Europe which conclude as much. Something that these early vessels seldom had was a power source. For the most part, the mechanical aspects of early hot air balloons were simple. involving inflation of the balloon on ground level and allowing the wind patterns around you to determine your route of travel. To apply directional steering to these miraculous devices, to apply a consistent source of energy, would be an aspect established at a much later time, creating the vessels which would be deemed to be airships. We have rigid airships of later years, like the German Hindenburg, which was constructed using a large, formidable metal frame. But we also have earlier airships, ideas by entrepreneurs and enthusiasts alike, who attempted to conquer the skies with a wide variety of unique designs. We have a multitude of different style airships arising in the early 1900s, those ingenious feats of craftsmanship, which were some of the first to apply directional navigation to the air. While these earliest of documented airships are truly a spectacle of the 20th century engineering, I'd like to peel back the proverbial page one step further and focus on the years of 1896 and 1897 specifically. In today's video, I'll be referencing Airship 1896-1897, The Advent of Techno-Wizardry by Richie Cooley. This paper contains references to over a dozen other books, first-hand accounts, and a cornucopia of well-documented, nationally published, and well-criticized articles from 1896 and 1897. The topic of discussion: a mysterious airship, which was first sighted in California in 1896 before the articles of its sighting, which were almost always at dusk, were published all around the country. These articles were almost instantaneously mocked by the scientific community and the rest of the public. That is, until the sightings of the same exact vessel started appearing in local newspapers all around the country, in a pattern beginning on the West Coast near San Francisco, before being seen in Texas, followed by the Midwest. As newspapers began to become flooded with articles referencing this giant airship that could change direction on a dime and could essentially reach speeds over 100 miles an hour, according to multiple resources, the real question around the country became, was this all a hoax? Was this a ruse? Or was this really an early airship invention, possibly an ingenious design for which the inventor was apparently in hiding? Could this mysterious airship actually have been an inherited device, an early means of travel, for which the lost civilization used to conquer the lands before the last, quote, reset? Could you look at this as ancient alien technology? I'm not one here to speculate or to often lend credit to a few individual stories or local articles. However, I do believe there is always a bit of truth into every published article. And if we know how to read between the lines, we can pick apart the apparent from the implied. And in the case of the mysterious airship of 1896 and 97, we have literally thousands of documented sightings, including signed statements and affidavits by high-ranking members of the government swearing oaths on their livelihood that they all witnessed the same enormous airship. So let us now dive into these accounts together and see what we make of this. The first accounts, which we will discuss here in a moment, of this massive airship occurred in the San Francisco Valley in late 1896. However, the same week that the first sighting of this mysterious airship occurred, there was a man who came forward by the name of George D. Collins. Now, Collins was apparently an attorney, and Collins claimed he was the attorney of the inventor or the founder of this mysterious airship. Collins came forward to newspapers all along the West Coast to openly discuss this airship, but without giving away any of the details of how exactly it worked or who its creator really was. Here's a quote given by Collins directly to the Sioux City Journal, dated November 23rd, 1896. And I quote, "It is perfectly true that there is at last a successful airship in existence and that California will have the honor of bringing it before the world. I've known of the affair for some time and am acting as attorney for the inventor. He is a very wealthy man who has been studying the subject of flying machines for 15 years and who came here 7 years ago from the state of Maine in order to be able to perfect his ideas away from the eyes of other inventors. During the last 5 years, he has spent at least $100,000 on his work. He has not yet secured his patent, but his application is now in Washington. I cannot say much about the machine he has perfected because he is my client And besides, he fears that the application will be stolen from the patent office if people come to know that the invention is practical. I saw the machine last week at the inventor's invitation. It is made of metal, is about 150 feet long, and is built to carry 15 people. There was no motor power as far as I could see, certainly no steam." End quote. Now, that's interesting to say the least. And after this, the same week, that's when these sightings started. Except the airship in all of these sightings wasn't traveling during the day. It wasn't traveling to be seen. The airship was traveling in darkness, basically moving at speeds that were unimaginable to the people of that time. The estimates that were published in different articles claimed the airship to be traveling well over 100 miles per hour. Some say 200 miles per hour. Some claim 250. And they say that it moved nearly silently. It would come to a complete stop in the middle of the air. It would be able to turn at 90-degree angles with ease. And the ship is still described like the one originally mentioned by Collins, the lawyer. It is described as a long, almost hot dog shaped or tic-tac shaped vessel. And this vessel appears to have little or no motor. Yet in most of the accounts that were published, when this vessel zooms off, it doesn't seem to leave behind a cloud or dust or residue or sound. What's furthermore, as the sightings began to rise in the San Francisco Valley in November of 1896, that is when all these attorneys, like Collins, rise out of the woodwork to claim that they know the inventor of the airship. We also have an article that was published on Sunday, November 29th, 1896, in the San Francisco Call, in which a man by the name of William Henry Harrison Hart, who once ran for the state attorney general, claimed that he was also in cahoots with the mysterious airship inventor. In this article, Hart is quoted as saying, and I quote, "I have not seen it, the airship, personally, but have talked with the man who claims to be the inventor. I have spent several hours with him. He has shown me drawings and diagrams of his invention, and I am convinced that they are more adapted for the purpose for which he claims them than any other invention making such claims that I have ever seen." End quote. And that's all fine and dandy. A mysterious ship, shady rich guys looking to claim it as their own, or somebody who hired them to be the attorney to claim profits. Sure, that makes sense. But what we want to know in this video is the truth. And I believe the truth can be best deduced from the multitude of sightings that were reported, beginning with those in California. In California, in November 1896, hundred elongated dark object with searchlights and was capable of flying against the wind. Between January and March 1897, it vanished entirely. And suddenly, a staggering number of observations of an identical object were made in the Midwest. Pseudo-scientific research conducted by Don Hanlon and John Keel may shed the best light on this subject matter. And from John Keel's work, we have this overall summary, as well as the numerous newspaper articles which we will discuss today. Is not easy. Particular standards of journalism in 1897 left much to be desired, but we weeded out 126 accounts that seemed reliable, named witnesses, and appeared to be responsibly written. All of these sample cases were reported in April 1897 and came from 14 different states. Actually, the spring flat began in March in several states and tapered off in May. There were mass sightings in Omaha, Nebraska in March, and in April, an airship passed directly over Chicago, Illinois, and was reportedly viewed by thousands. A few days before that sighting, on April 9th, the Chicago papers had carried articles ridiculing the reports that were coming in from other sections of the country. Maybe the bearded inventor decided to put on a show for the skeptical Chicagoans. On the night of Saturday, April 17th, 1897 alone, there were reported sightings in 7 scattered towns and cities in Michigan. That same night, 12 towns in Texas, far, far from Michigan, also had sightings, as did Waterloo, Iowa, and St. Louis, Missouri. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved in some of these sightings. We cannot dismiss them all, nor can we explain them." End quote. Now, I wanted to be able to throw in my own 2 cents on this and give my own opinion, and I didn't want to get too out of the ordinary here, but as these sightings continued to make their way across the country in 1896, beginning in California and then coming to Texas in 1897 and making their way to the Midwest, and as these newspaper articles published began to become more assertive in these claims, we then have a mass occurrence that occurred on April Fool's Day, 1897. And on this date, we're told as many as 10,000 people were reported as witnessing this vessel flying directly over Kansas City at dusk. And it remained there basically all night. We're not in Kansas anymore. And this just made me hearken back to the importance of this date, April Fool's Day. One, we have modern naysayers who may claim that this date was chosen basically to elude the public to the idea that this mysterious vessel was in fact a hoax, seeing as the largest occurrence, the most noted occurrence with the most people, the largest sighting of this vessel occurred on April Fool's Day. But another way to look at it would be that this date was chosen as a reveal, as the time that this vessel would become apparent to everyone. As we look at the history of April Fool's Day, let us not forget its earliest origins, which many attest to the Bible, including the London Advertiser, which published on March 13th, 1767, an article which read, quote, "The mistake of Noah sending the dove out of the ark before the water had abated on the first day of April, and to perpetuate the memory of this deliverance, it was thought proper, whoever forgot so remarkable a circumstance, to punish them by sending them upon some sleeveless errand, similar to that ineffectual message upon which the bird was sent by the patriarch." End quote. Now imagine if
That's
this
somebody's
airship,
vain
metaphorically
opinion.
speaking, was like the dove. This vessel was sent out by some civilization to test the waters of Earth, to see if Earth was ready for this technology. That's just a theory. But the vessel could be from an otherworldly being, and that is worth noting here. As we dive into these accounts further and begin to read the accounts from the Midwest in 1897, we have many of them that read as follows, and I quote, "In total, there were approximately 150 sightings in roughly 20 states. Then, in April of 1897, just as sudden..."
All right, so I think I got one more. You can continue to watch that one and subscribe to that channel, to the channels period that I'm sharing. I think this is the last one. And you can continue on. The links will be in the description. Yep, this is the last one. Just to be clear, I don't agree with everything that is quote unquote mentioned biblically. The history and the information is one thing, but biblically, I don't agree with everything that's quote unquote mentioned.
One century ago, the sky was filled with wondrous airships. This was the height of the era, the time when airships were being experimented with by the nations that had been adversaries in World War I and would become adversaries again in World War II. What were the limits of the capabilities of these airships? Was this just a temporary foray by the civilizations at the time to develop a new form of transportation? Or is there another story behind these airships? Was this some sort of technology that was rediscovered from a previous civilization? Or is it simply, as we're told in the mainstream account? Come join me today as we examine the account of airships and look for the actual explanation behind their rise and their fall.
I realize that nothing we've been doing is new. We haven't been tapping into new areas of the brain. We've just been awakening the most ancient.
Advanced airships, or the rigid airship design as it was known as, Originally, they started off being called Zeppelins, and they were developed in Germany, according to the official history. And yet, the other nations that contended for dominance with Germany developed their own airships, such as these designs from the United Kingdom that followed after World War I. The official history also tells us that Zeppelins were used to bomb the United Kingdom during World War I, prior to the advent of the long-range bombers that were used in World War II. And we see many interesting and intriguing designs that show the capability of these rigid airships. We don't have anything like rigid airships now today. Of course, there are other forms of airships. We think of balloons, and we of course think of the blimps that we often see in football games, such as the Goodyear blimp. But we can look and see this development timeline here of the airships from the United Kingdom, and we can see that most of their development actually started before the interwar period. And so it seems as though there was more of a, at least, sharing of technology or an awareness of this airship technology. The rigid airships were the most advanced, and they had the greatest capability of the blimps, and of course the other variations of balloons that had been around, at least since the 1700s according to the official history. And naturally we see how all these airships ended up in the United Kingdom, destroyed in trials, deleted and demolished, and as you look in the other designs, that's what you'll see. Yet, in this particular exploration, I'm going to try to showcase some images that are a little bit more rare, at least in terms of awareness. And we can see that these airships included massive hangars, other great capabilities that we often see in our explorations. There's also the many towers that have unique construction capabilities behind them that were used to moor these airships to. Perhaps the most interesting thing about airships, in addition to their all-terrain capability and their ability to move around regardless of certain situations, is where they can land or where they can moor to. This is a very interesting tower, and the building at the base of it is quite intriguing as well. What happened to all these towers? Were they all torn down? When we look at the rigid airship, though, we consider the mainstream historical account. We're informed that in the 1870s there was the initial idea to develop airships. Ah yes, another wondrous design plan that came from the 1800s, because what else would it be? Yet when you look at some of these images, you can see that there was a lot of detail that went into the construction of these airships. We have to think about the hangars, we have to consider all these materials that had to be assembled, processed, and yet at the same time, in the early 1900s to the 1930s, they managed to achieve all of this. Now, I'm not suggesting that this was impossible, just very impressive. And of course, the official history tells us why the airships had such a sudden rise to fame and popularity, and why they instantly diminished from their massive use. Would you be surprised to know that airships, or Zeppelins as they were called from Germany, provided the first transatlantic transportation? So imagine what kind of infrastructure capabilities you'd have. We'll be looking at the Graf Zeppelin later, perhaps the height of design of the rigid airship, and also the means in which it was funded. Apparently, William Randolph Hearst, who we've looked at before, was a significant proponent of airships and even provided financial support. Here we can even see one of the remaining airship hangars next to modern fighters. Something about it does seem to indicate, though, a greater advanced technology, and that's probably one of the main reasons why airships are so compelling, especially to alternative researchers. And yet, even if you accept the mainstream account of history, you have to acknowledge the fact that there was quite a lot of focus that was put in the development of the airship. Going off of the official history, with Germany developing the first airships, or Zeppelins as they called them, they seemed to understand the maximum capabilities that could be achieved with a rigid airship. There had never been any sort of flying device that could deliver munitions to another nation, and while this might be a more pernicious or violent form of use of airships, it does reflect their transportation capability. Indeed, with the construction of the Graf Zeppelin, we understand that Germany had achieved the heights of airship construction. And as part of the reparations for World War I, they even built an airship for the United States Navy, which apparently saved the Zeppelin program. This was the USS Los Angeles. So isn't this an intriguing account? We have Germany, who attacked the United Kingdom, and you can find no shortage of monuments across the United Kingdom about airship attacks or Zeppelin attacks that occurred in World War I. Yet, apparently, Zeppelins were not regarded the same way that naval warships were, because after World War I, there was a lot of limitation concerning the construction of naval warships, as people feared their use. But apparently they didn't fear the Zeppelin. And so the United States and the United Kingdom decided to build or order their own Zeppelins from Germany, and then eventually improved upon their designs. At least, again, that's what the official history tells us. Of course, if you step far enough back, you have to realize that there's a lot more that goes into the construction of these impressive airships. You can see that there are no shortage of images of these vehicles being docked to towers and also being landed on the ground. And so it seems as though there's no limit to their capability. You don't have the same constraints that you do when you're operating fixed-wing aircraft or even rotary-wing aircraft. You actually have a capacity to transport, logistics, in a means that you can't even begin to conceptualize. Oddly enough, the interior photos of airships seem to be quite limited, and we tend to see a very austere making of the interiors, as though the crews were a little bit cramped, and we have to recall that the availability of images may or may not reflect the reality of what technological achievements that were brought about with the rigid airship. Now, we referred earlier to the blimps and the balloons and why they were limited. They didn't match the rigid airship in terms of their range and their capability to transport vast amounts of materials or logistics across vast distances. Here we can even see the construction of one of the original airships that was taken to the United States, which is how we explain there already being a U.S. logo on the side of it for the United States Navy. Very intriguing. We can also see in other images all the effort that went into the initial construction. So step back and look at this holistically. You have to establish these massive hangars that are far larger than any of the hangars that we have for current fixed-wing aircraft. And you also have to be able to assemble all these advanced construction materials. They seem to be able to quickly share the designs and the plans and the schematics and rapidly assemble these airships. Also, from the mainstream historical account, there's no shortage of apparent disasters or failures that occur.
All right. So I'm gonna stop that one there. Again, it's gonna be in the description, all 3 links to the videos that were shared, and feel free to subscribe to those channels as well. Got a lot of great information. So with that, we're gonna come to a close, and by the grace of God, be back next week with another one. I'm hoping to be able to get a couple of guests on with me, because I really want to touch on a topic with something that's going on in current events with an individual claiming to be someone of high importance spiritually that just popped up out of nowhere as soon as the so-called Pope died. So stay tuned for that, if that's going to be next week. If not, maybe the week after. But it's definitely a topic to be touched on. And we'll continue on with the rest of the presentations that's filling in the pieces to this puzzle of the overall picture that is being presented, which soon, again, we will be going through. So thank you for tuning in. As always, peace. It's God time. Do you see what we see? And salute. Godspeed. Peace.